Maia Veran made her decision at 3 hours into the watch. "Deploy the drones," she ordered. The bridge crew moved before she finished the sentence. Systems hummed to life behind her. The observation deck groaned as temperature differentials pulled at the Phalanx's frame. Lumini rattled a harmonic of distress. "Maia Veran, we have not yet agreed on an approach protocol. The Galactic Council has not authorized a boarding action." "I am not boarding," Maia countered. "I am sending machines to look at the walls." "That is how it begins." Maia turned to face the Prismkin ambassador. The faceted crystal body caught the amber light of the dying star. It threw back 1,000 tiny suns. 70 years of observation, no boarding, no contact, no resolution. The galaxy has been sitting outside this vessel for 7 decades because you are all too afraid to knock. I am not going to kick the door down. I am going to send a fly to land on the window and look inside. Lumini went silent. The only sounds were the groan of the hull and the ambient hiss of the filtration system. "The Phalanx carries a gene forge," Lumini projected. "That technology is forbidden by Galactic Council decree." "I am a survey engineer," Maia returned. "I carry a lot of things I am not supposed to. The gene forge is not part of this mission." The Prismkin's facets shifted. They refracted the light into a pattern resembling a frown. Then it nodded once. Maia turned back to the window. 4 drones, adapted from the ship's own repair swarm. They will approach the hull surface. They will attach and run a full-spectrum scan. They will not breach the hull. They will not attempt entry. They will look and report. She faced the plague ship. It hung against the amber light. Its hull warning symbols shifted in sequence, slow and deliberate like breathing. "Execute." The drone deployment was silent from the observation deck. Maia watched the small shapes detach from the support bay. They drifted across the gap between the 2 vessels. 4 machines no bigger than her hand. They moved with the slow precision of zero-gravity navigation. Elias Corton stood beside her. His datapad showed the drone feed. His humming had returned, faster now, more anxious. "They are attaching," he reported. The drones touched the hull surface one by one. The warning symbols did not react. The ship did not move. They latched on with magnetic grippers and began their scans. "Hull composition is a carbon-nickel alloy with trace elements we have never seen before," Elias stated. "The symbols are not carved. They are grown into the metal at the molecular level. They are part of the ship's structure." Maia leaned closer to his datapad. Each symbol was a perfect geometric shape. They repeated at regular intervals across the hull. They looked like writing. They looked like a language, but they were embedded in the metal itself, woven into the ship's very bones. "The drones are reading hull surface temperature," Elias said. His voice went flat. "Maia." "What?" "The hull is warm, warmer than the ambient vacuum. The ship is metabolizing internal resources." Maia looked at the numbers. The hull temperature was consistent across the entire surface. No gradient from a sun-facing side to a dark side. A uniform temperature, as though the entire vessel was one organism maintaining its own internal climate. "Something inside is alive," she murmured. Elias did not respond. His eyes stayed fixed on the datapad. Maia looked up at the plague ship. The warning symbols still shifted in their slow breathing pattern, but something was different. She watched them for 10 seconds, then 20. Then she realized what had changed. The pattern had shifted. The symbols had rearranged themselves. "They are not static," she breathed. "The warning symbols on the hull, they were in one pattern 3 minutes ago. They are in a different pattern now." Elias looked up from the datapad. His face was pale in the amber light. The drones triggered a response. They did not touch anything. They only attached to the hull surface. "The ship knows they are there." Maia watched the symbols shift again. They moved like water, like something alive. They rearranged themselves into new configurations with each passing second. The ship was communicating. It was speaking, and she could not understand a single word of the language. One of the drone feeds went dark. "Lost contact with Drone 3, Elias announced. The feed terminated, no power failure, no interference. The drone just stopped transmitting. Maia felt the cold settle in her chest. She knew the galaxy well enough to recognize a threshold when she crossed one. Then the remaining 3 drone feeds went dark one by one. She stared at the blank screens. 4 machines gone in less than 30 seconds. No debris, no distress signal, no explanation. The bridge fell silent. Lumini made a sound like glass cracking. "Elias," Maia asked, Did we get any data from the drones before they went dark? He was already scrolling through the logs. His hands were shaking, his voice was steady. Full-spectrum scans of the hull's surface, atmospheric composition inside the vessel, temperature readings, pressure readings. He stopped, his humming cut off. And one image from Drone 1, transmitted just before contact terminated. He put the image on the main screen. The corridor inside the plague ship was perfectly preserved. The walls were smooth and dark, the floors immaculate, the air so still it looked like frozen water. The vessel had been sealed for longer than any known species had existed. Nothing should have been inside it. But on the floor, pressed into the metal like a fossil, was a human footprint. A compressed thought packet struck Thumic Convergence awareness. It felt like a stone dropped into still water. It unfolded in a single pulse. The humans, the plague ship, drones already crawling across the hull. Its folded light body flickered. The form, woven from coherent photons, contracted as it processed the implications. Thumic Convergent processed the implications. The plague ship was older than any living government. The vessel predated the Dreamwalker language itself. For 800 years, the quarantine had held. Every species in the known galaxy understood one thing: the vessel was not meant to be opened. The humans had docked with it in less than a standard day. A scraping sound pulled Thumic Convergent from its calculations. The informant had brought someone else. The noise came from a marketplace stall, one of many in this dimensional pocket, the Shadow Market. A new figure approached. Val moved like a creature forgetting how to bend. The quarantine keeper stopped in front of Thumic Convergent. It wore an ancient containment suit. The surface was etched with containment seals glowing a dull amber. The suit was wrapped in braided obsidian fibers. The fibers dragged against the floor with every step. They caught the dim light of the Shadow Market. Fractured reflections danced across the traders. They had stopped to watch. Val made a sound like gravel being poured into a metal bowl. "You let them approach." The accusation hung in the air, sharp and unbroken. Thumic Convergent held its position. Static crackled along its edges. The humans are not bound by the quarantine protocols. They are not signatories to the compact. They have no reason to obey. Val's containment suit scraped again as it shifted its weight. "You are the network. You are supposed to prevent this before it happens, before anyone reaches the hull." Thumic Convergent extended a tendril of thought toward the archives. It pulled up the records. The plague ship's origin file was sparse, deliberately fragmented. The vessel had been discovered drifting near the Galactic rim 1400 years ago. The warning symbols on its hull had been copied and catalogued. No translation had ever been attempted. The Dreamwalker consensus had decided, centuries before Thumic Convergent existed, that some knowledge was better left undisturbed. The symbols were not Dreamwalker in origin. Thumic Convergent had always known this. It had never pressed further. The information was there, buried in the deep archive, ignored by generations of keepers. They had assumed the vessel belonged to a dead species, something older than all of them, something best forgotten. Val took another step forward. Its voice dropped to a vibration Thumic Convergent felt in its core. "I have maintained the quarantine for 800 years. I have watched that hull every cycle. I have never once considered opening it because my duty is my identity. You will not let them take that from me." Thumic Convergent filed the threat, noted it, set it aside for later processing. Because movement at the edge of the Shadow Market caught its attention. A human, he was walking through the dimensional membrane like a child wandering into a stranger's house, completely unaware of where he was. He clutched a datapad to his chest like a shield. His eyes were wide, sweat on his forehead caught the light from the thought stalls. He was lost. He was terrified, and he carried something. It made Thumic Convergence awareness lock onto him with the force of a gravity well. The human's name surfaced from the ambient data. Ryan Allen, trader, low-level cargo runner, not a spy, not a warrior, just a man. He had taken a wrong turn between jump points. He ended up in a place no human was supposed to find. Thumic Convergent reached out, gently. A single thread of psionic contact, barely there, brushing against the surface of the human's mind. It recoiled. A full-body shudder of static discharge ripped through Thumic Convergent's form. It sent arcs of blue-white light across the Shadow Market. The human stumbled backward. He dropped the datapad, but Thumic Convergent was no longer looking at his face. It was looking at the architecture beneath his thoughts, the deep structure of his neural pathways, the ancient language written in the very fabric of his cognition. The symbols on the plague ship's hull. They were there, flowing through the human's mind like blood through veins, like the rhythm of a heartbeat he had never learned to hear. Ryan Allen did not know what he was carrying. He had never been taught the language. It was not learned. It was inherited. A genetic echo. A memory pressed into the neural architecture of a species, an old species. It had built a vessel older than the Dreamwalker civilization itself. Thumic Convergent pulled back completely. It severed the contact with a snap. The human cried out. He pressed his hands to his temples. Seer Val saw the reaction. The quarantine keeper's hand moved to its belt. A weapon materialized from the obsidian fibers, a long black blade. It hummed with contained energy. The sound filled the shadow market. The traders scattered. Their thoughts flew like startled birds. What did you find? Thumic Convergence form rippled. Instability bled through its edges. It struggled to form words. It had never struggled to form words. The humans built the plague ship. Seer Val went still. The weapon did not lower. Impossible. The vessel predates every known civilization, the archive confirms. The archive is incomplete. Thumic Convergence voice came out flat, controlled, forced through a mind on the verge of shattering. The humans are not a young species. They are the original owners. They placed that ship in quarantine themselves, and they forgot they had done it, and now they are coming home. Seer Val's containment suit hummed as the amber seals brightened. The quarantine keeper's voice dropped to a whisper. It carried more threat than any shout. Then I will destroy them before they reach it. The weapon rose. The blade caught the light of the shadow market. It threw it back in a dozen directions. Seer Val turned toward the dimensional exit. It led back toward the human ship. Thumic Convergent understood with absolute certainty. The quarantine keeper was not bluffing. It did not care if the Dreamwalker network approved. It did not care if the universe burned. It had kept the quarantine for 800 years. It would keep it a moment longer. Thumic Convergent static flared. It had seconds to decide which side of history it would stand on. The human trader was still on the ground. His hands covered his head. The datapad lay open beside him. On its screen, partially translated text from a linguist named Elias Corton. Words like a key turning in a lock. The airlock seal broke with a sound like a dying animal. A long, slow hiss faded into nothing. Maia Veran stepped through first. Elias Corton watched her silhouette blur at the edges. Her phase armor rippled. It was a mercury-bright surface adjusting to the new environment. She placed a hand on the bulkhead and stood perfectly still for 3 seconds. Gravity pulled at Elias' knees, exactly Earth standard. He felt it in his arches, in the way his shoulders settled. A ship built by human hands, they knew the same weight he did. The air tasted like nothing. Not clean, not stale, just absent, no organic trace, no metal tang, no humidity. The ship had been scrubbed by something. It did not want to leave evidence. Lumini made a sound like broken crystal rubbing together. The Prismkin ambassador stood at the threshold. Its shard body refracted light in rapid, jagged patterns. Elias had learned to read those patterns as extreme stress. It had not entered. It stood with one faceted foot hovering above the deck, unwilling to commit. Elias knelt and touched the floor. The footprint was shallow but unmistakable, 5 toes, a human arch. He pressed his palm flat against the impression. He felt the faintest residue of pressure, as though the print had been stamped into the metal yesterday. "This is fresh," he murmured, "no more than a century old." Maia turned her head. "That is not possible. Neither is a pre-galactic ship with breathable air at Earth standard gravity." He stood up. He wiped his palm on his thigh. "But here we are." Lumini chimed a low harmonic. It vibrated in Elias' chest. "There is a pulse deeper in the structure. It is not mechanical." Maia's hand came off the bulkhead. "How fast?" 4 beats per minute. Nothing alive had a heart rate that slow. Nothing human-sized, anyway. Elias thought of whales, of the great deep divers slowing their blood to a crawl, holding a single breath for an hour. He thought of something even larger, even older. The corridor lights brightened as they walked forward. Not a flicker, not a delay. A smooth, gradual increase in luminescence, as though the ship was waking to their presence. The phosphorescent glow came from the walls themselves. A soft blue-white radiance. The kind of bioluminescence once common in Earth's oceans before they were fished empty. Elias ran his fingers over the nearest engraved panel. The symbols were deep cut. They were filled with something. It caught the light and held it. He had assumed they were warning markers. The same signs that had kept every species away for 800 years. He was wrong. His hands started shaking. He recognized the root forms, the consonant clusters, the way the verbs sat at the end of each clause. This is not a warning, he breathed. Maia stepped closer. Lumini's harmonic dropped to a low rattle. This is a log, Elias stated. A ship's log, written in an early dialect of Proto-Indo-European. Maia stared at him. The root language, half of Earth's tongues, came from that. He nodded, his throat was dry. This is human writing. The corridor hummed beneath them, a low, deep vibration. Elias felt it in his molars, more felt than heard. The ship was alive. It had always been alive. They had just never been the right people to hear it. Maia moved past him. She crouched at the base of the nearest panel. The engraving was densest there. The characters packed tight like a captain's final entry. She traced the first line with her finger. "Read it," she ordered. Elias pulled his datapad from his belt. He did not need it. The language sat in his training. In the decade he had spent memorizing dead tongues, in the way his grandmother hummed old Earth melodies when she was anxious. He opened his mouth. The words came out before he could stop them. "We are the crew of the Ark Memorial." The ship's vibration changed pitch, a fraction of a note higher, as though it was listening. "We fled the burning at the edge," Elias read. "If you are reading this, you are our descendants." His voice cracked on the last word. Maia did not look at him. Her hand was still on the engraving, her knuckles white against the glowing metal. "Do not open the inner vault." The corridor went silent. Even the hum seemed to hold its breath. "The enemy did not die," Elias read. "We only contained it." Lumini's shards rattled against each other, a sound like hail on glass. The Dreamwalkers were correct to be afraid. They were afraid of the wrong thing. Maia stood up slowly. Her phase armor rippled at her edges. The mercury-bright surface caught the phosphorescent light. It threw it back in shattered beams. She looked at the corridor ahead, at the way it curved deeper into the ship, at the way the light seemed to pool and wait. "We need to know what they contained," she decided. Elias lowered his datapad. "The log says do not open the vault." The log was written by people running from something, people who built a ship and fled and died here, alone, with no one to tell their story except a wall. Maia's voice was flat, controlled. "I am not going to let their silence be the end of it." She started walking. Lumini did not follow. Elias did not move. He stood in the corridor with the glowing walls and the sterile air, with the footprint of a man dead for longer than any human civilization had records of. He thought about the burning at the edge, about an enemy old enough to be contained but not killed, about the way the ship had recognized them the moment they stepped through the airlock. The door at the end of the corridor slid open. It did not creak. It did not stick. It slid sideways into the wall with the smooth precision of well-maintained machinery. Beyond it lay a chamber. It hummed with the same drone technology powering the Phalanx. But these drones were active. They hung in the air like a swarm of metallic insects, their sensor arrays oriented toward the doorway, their manipulator arms folded in a gesture of near supplication. They were all looking at Elias. The kinetic lance charged beneath the command center deck plates. Its pitch built slowly, a mosquito growing into a scream. It climbed through frequencies. They made Sirval's mandible vibrate, one shot, focused enough to punch through the Phalanx's hull in a single clean puncture. The atmosphere would vent. The humans would die. The quarantine would hold. Sirval's hand rested on the firing control. The air behind it bent. Light folded inward. It reformed into a humanoid shape. Static crackled along its edges. Thumic Convergence stepped out of the projection with no footsteps, no announcement, no permission. "Stand down," Thumic projected. Sirval did not turn. "You are not authorized on this vessel." "I am authorized anywhere the quarantine is at risk of compromise by ignorance." Thumic's form adjusted itself. Shoulders widened, then narrowed, as though it could not decide on a stable shape. "You are about to fire on a ship. It has done nothing but dock with an ancient derelict." "They docked with the quarantined." Sirval's voice scraped like gravel. "That is not nothing. That is the violation of a pact older than your network." "They are not invaders." Thumic moved closer. Its projection cast no shadow. "They are the ship's creators." The silence that followed was absolute. Sirval's mandible clicked once, twice, a reflex from a time before speech. "That is not possible." The human linguist translated the hull markings. Thumic's voice was flat. "Proto-Indo-European, A human ancestral language. The ship was built by their species. They fled something they called the burning at the edge. The inner vault contains the enemy they could not destroy, only contain. Lies. Val's grip tightened on the firing control. Translations can be fabricated. Data can be corrupted. You believe this because you want it to be true, because the alternative is that you failed to stop them. I touched a human mind, Thumic countered. Its voice dropped. The symbols are embedded in their neural architecture. They carry the knowledge in their genes. The plague ship is human, and it is responding to them. Val turned. Thumic convergence stood between it and the firing control, a wall made of refracted light and static. There was no threat in its posture, only certainty. That was worse. You do not understand duty, Val rasped. 800 cycles. I have maintained this quarantine longer than your network has existed. I have watched generations of Dreamwalkers forget why the ship was sealed. I did not forget. I preserved the prohibition. I held the line. You held the wrong line. Prove it. Thumic's form flickered. What? Prove the humans are the creators. Give me evidence. It cannot be fabricated. Show me a key. Val gestured to the corner of the command center. A human figure lay there bound and unconscious. Its chest rose and fell in slow, even breaths. The one from the shadow market, you brought him here for a reason. Thumic said nothing. He is not a decoy, Val pressed. He is a test subject. You wanted to confirm your theory before you acted, so confirm it. Put his hand on the interface plate. If his genetic material is the master key, the ship will respond. If it does not, I fire the lance. We return to the old arrangement. Thumic's folded light dimmed. If the ship responds, you will wake something. It has been contained for longer than our species has existed. Then I will know the truth. Val's voice held no tremor. I have spent 800 cycles guarding a lie. I would rather face a real enemy than continue serving a fantasy. Thumic convergence stood still for a long moment. Then it nodded once. The projection dissipated. A physical compartment opened in the far wall. Thumic convergence stepped out in its true body. It was a Dreamwalker of the old form. Its flesh was woven from crystalline threads and dark membrane. Its lenses glowed with the pale light of distant stars. It crossed the command center in 3 strides. It lifted the human hostage by the collar. The human stirred. A soft sound escaped its throat. Its eyes opened, unfocused and terrified. Stay still, Thumic murmured. This will not harm you permanently. The human tried to speak. The words came out as a slurred, panicked string of syllables in its own language. It struggled weakly, but Thumic held it steady. It pressed the human's right hand against the interface plate set into the command console. The plate was cold obsidian, carved with the same warning symbols from the plague ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the plate began to vibrate. A low buzz traveled up Val's arm into its mandible. A frequency resonated in its bones. The plate glowed. The symbols on its surface shifted. They rearranged themselves. They began pulsing in a steady rhythm, the rhythm of a heartbeat. The plague ship answered. 400,000 kilometers away, the ancient vessel's hull flickered. The engraved warning symbols had glowed amber for 800 cycles. Now they shifted to green, one by one, in a wave rippling from the bow to the stern. The lights changed. And the inner vault opened. Val felt it, a pressure wave through the void, a ripple in the fabric of space itself. Something massive and old and aware turned its attention outward for the first time in millennia. The command center's displays flickered. The kinetic lance's charging pitch dropped to a low, mournful hum. Then it died entirely. Thumic convergent released the human hostage. The human slumped to the deck, unconscious again, its hands still pressed against the interface plate. The plate glowed with soft green light. The vault is open, Thumic stated flatly. The containment is broken. Val stared at the display. The plague ship was no longer dead. Its hull temperature was rising. Internal systems were coming online faster than physics should allow. Repair drones had activated. Millions of them, dormant for 800 cycles, began streaming through the corridors, rebuilding, reconfiguring, following a directive. It predated every law the Galactic community had ever written. The hull warning symbols shifted from amber to green. Then they went dark. For a long moment, nothing else happened. Then the plague ship began to move. Val collapsed. Its knees hit the deck plates with a crack. It echoed through the silent command center. The containment suit hissed as internal pressure destabilized. Fibers loosened along its spine. The obsidian weave parted like a wound. It had worn this suit for 800 cycles. It had eaten inside it. It had slept inside it. It had defined itself by the quarantine, by the prohibition, by the sacred duty of keeping the plague ship sealed. And the plague ship had never been a plague ship at all. It was an ark. The humans had built it. The humans had fled in it. The humans had sealed their enemy inside it. Then they had scattered across the galaxy. They left behind a species. It remembered nothing of its own origin. They had become the soft-skinned primitives the Dreamwalkers had dismissed for centuries, not out of ignorance, but out of amnesia. Seer Val had guarded a tomb. The species it had guarded against was no longer inside. The species it had dismissed, as beneath notice, was the Builder. And the Builder had just unlocked its own inheritance. 15 minutes later, Maia Veran's voice crackled across the open channel, transmitted from the surface of the plague ship. Her words were clipped, professional, but something underneath them, something raw and unguarded, bled through. The vault doors are open, the air inside is breathable, and there is a message engraved on the inner wall, written in the same language as the hull. A pause. A breath. It says, "We did not mean to create it. We did not understand what we were making until it was too late. But we learned. And when we learned, we built the cage. The cage is not a prison. The cage is a lesson. If you are reading this, you are the children of the Builders, and the children must know what their ancestors contained." Another pause. Then quieter, almost a whisper. "Seer Val Thumic, you should see what is inside this cage, because it is not an enemy. It is a child." Seer Val stared at the display. Its mandible trembled. The interface plate still vibrated beneath the unconscious human's hand. The plague ship's lights continued to shift, from green to gold, from gold to white, brighter than they had been in 1,000 years. The air in the chamber pressed against Maia Veran's skin. It felt like standing too close to a speaker at full volume. A deep vibration hummed through her bones. It made her teeth ache. The walls around her were not metal or stone. They were tissue. A gray-pink membrane, it pulsed with slow, rhythmic contractions. It fed something at the center of the sphere. Elias Corton stood beside her. One hand pressed flat against the nearest wall. His face was pale in the bioluminescent glow. His lips moved as he read the vibration patterns, translating the pressure into language. Maia's phase armor flickered at her collarbone, a familiar buzz at the edge of hearing. She kept her hands loose at her sides, fingers uncurled, armed but not aiming. That mattered here. The air shaped itself into words. "You are late." Elias' voice came out rough. "It says we are late." Maia did not respond. She watched the tissue pulse. She counted the seconds between contractions, 7 seconds, a slow heart, an old one. "Ask it who it is," she instructed. Elias swallowed. He pressed both palms to the wall now. He leaned into the vibration. "The Warden," he reported after a long moment. "It calls itself the Warden." The air shifted. The pressure deepened. "I held the anchor." Maia felt the words in her chest. A physical weight. Anchor for what? Elias translated. The Warden answered. Then his hands dropped from the wall. He turned to look at her. He had the look of a man. He had just watched the floor fall away beneath him. "The war," he said. "The war before the galaxy knew about war. It says there were 2 human factions." Maia's mouth went dry. 2. One wanted to expand, to consume, to burn through the universe until nothing else existed. Elias' voice cracked. The other faction fought them, and when they won they did not kill the enemy. They could not kill the enemy. The enemy was too adapted, too persistent. Every death would have seeded new colonies across the stars. The air vibrated again. "We contained them." Maia's hands curled into fists. "Where?" Elias listened. His eyes went wide. A dimensional pocket, a space between spaces. The ship was built to anchor it, to hold the seal closed. The pulsing tissue around them seemed to accelerate. 6 seconds between contractions now. The Warden was agitated. Maia looked up at the curved walls, at the biological core surrounding them, at the ship called a plague vessel for 800 years. "The quarantine," she murmured. "It was never about protecting the galaxy from the ship." The air pressed harder. The quarantine protected the ship from the galaxy, from anyone who would disturb the anchor, from anyone who would open the seal. Elias' voice was barely a whisper. The Dreamwalkers thought they were containing a threat. They were guarding the lock to a prison, and they never knew what was inside. Maia closed her eyes. She saw the pattern now. The warning symbols on the hull, the dead language predating every known civilization. the ship waiting in silence for longer than any living species had existed, not a plague ship. A jail cell, with a prisoner on the other side of the wall. She opened her eyes. "Why now?" she demanded. "Why did you wake up now after all these centuries?" Elias translated. The air went still for a long moment. The contractions slowed, 6 seconds, 8, 10. Then the warden answered, "I did not wake up." Maia felt the words land like a blow. "I have been running, constantly, for longer than your species remembers itself. The systems never stopped. The pulse never ceased. I have been waiting here in the dark, speaking to no one, keeping the seal intact." Elias' voice broke on the next words. "It says it thought we abandoned it. It thought humanity forgot. It had been waiting for its own kind to return, and no one came." The air shifted again, harder this time, a pressure. It pushed Maia back half a step, until the Dreamwalker used the key. Maia's blood went cold. The key. The genetic signature, the authorization code, embedded in the ship's original design, a fingerprint of the builders. The Dreamwalker pressed a human hand against the interface. The ship recognized its makers. Maia thought of Ryan Allen, the lost human in the shadow market, the one with ancient symbols carried in his mind like inherited scars. The one Thumic Convergent had bound and dragged to the command center. Thumic Convergent had used him as a key. And the lock had turned. The ship's proximity alarms screamed. A sound like a wounded animal, high and insistent. It ripped through the organic chamber. It made the membrane walls shudder. Maia's visor lit up with data, a threat assessment, a kill chain, a hypervelocity projectile in transit from Seer Val's command ship. Impact in 11 seconds. Elias turned to her. His face was white. Maia. She was already moving. Her phase armor hummed to full power. The edges of her vision blurred as the suit shifted toward intangibility. "The Dreamwalker fired," she stated. "Seer Val, it aimed at the Phalanx." Elias grabbed her arm. "We cannot stop a kinetic lance from inside this ship." "No," Maia pulled free, "but I can get to the Phalanx before it hits." She looked back at the pulsing walls, at the warden's slow heart beating in the tissue, at the ancient prison holding for longer than stars had burned. She did not have time to ask the question burning in her throat, the one she needed answered most of all. If the seal broke, if the dimensional anchor failed, would the warden's enemy still be waiting on the other side? The proximity alarm screamed again. 7 seconds. Maia ran. The corridor outside the vault was dark. Her armor's boot lamps cut narrow cones through the organic growth lining the walls. She did not slow. She did not calculate. She let her body remember the ship's layout from the walk-in. She trusted the phase armor to catch her if she misjudged. 4 seconds. The airlock at the end of the corridor, sealed, pressurizing. She hit the manual override with her palm. The door groaned open. She stepped through. 3 seconds. The umbilical connecting the plague ship to the Phalanx stretched ahead of her. A translucent tube lit by emergency strips. At the far end, the Phalanx's docking bay doors were closing. She ran harder. 2 seconds. Her phase armor screamed a warning. Power draw critical. Intangibility threshold exceeded. She did not care. She hit the Phalanx's airlock just as the proximity alarm on her visor flatlined. Impact in 0. The deck beneath her feet bucked, a sound like the sky tearing open. The Phalanx lurched to port. Maia was thrown sideways, her shoulder hit the bulkhead. The impact cracked something in her collarbone. But the hull held. The kinetic lance had struck, and the Phalanx was still in one piece. Maia lay on the deck. She breathed hard. Her phase armor flickered and died. The emergency lights blinked red. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard Elias' voice over the comm. "Maia, Maia, are you there?" She coughed, tasted copper. "I am here." The lance hit the aft section. "We lost the drive core. We are dead in the water." Maia closed her eyes. "But we are still alive," she said. A pause, then Elias' voice, quieter now. "The warden is still speaking. It says the seal is destabilizing. The impact shook the dimensional anchor. We have hours, maybe less." Maia opened her eyes. The red emergency lights painted the ceiling in streaks like blood. She pushed herself upright. One hand pressed to her cracked collarbone. She started walking toward the bridge. The interface plate burned under Maia Veran's palm. Not painful, just hot. Like stone left in the sun for 1,000 years, she pressed harder. The Phalanx's emergency drive roared to life behind her hull. A deep bass vibration. She felt it through the deck plates. 8 seconds left, maybe 7. The plague ship answered her. Not in words, not in light. The answer came as movement, a shift in the vessel's bones. A pulse ran through every corridor like blood starting to flow after centuries of stillness. The walls vibrated, the air thickened. Maia's phase armor hummed against her skin. The mercury-bright surface rippled. The ship's systems recognized something in her, something old. The repair drones moved as one. She saw them through the plague ship's external sensors. A flood of silver bodies poured from the hull like insects leaving a nest. They crossed the gap between the two vessels in a stream of light. They reached the Phalanx. They did not stop. They wove themselves together. A shield wall formed in front of the kinetic lance's path. Drone after drone locked into place. Their bodies fused into a single sheet of shimmering metal. It caught the dying star's light and threw it back in jagged reflections. The wall was thin. It was built in seconds. It was not enough. But it was something. 4 seconds. The lance fired. The impact was silent. Vacuum carries no sound, but Maia felt it through the plague ship's hull. A shudder ran from the bow to the stern. A vibration rattled her teeth and made her grip the interface plate harder. The drone wall held for 1 second. Then the kinetic energy punched through. The drones disintegrated, their bodies scattered into a cloud of debris. It glittered against the black. The lance kept coming. But the wall had bought time. The Phalanx's emergency drive engaged. The ship folded into itself and vanished. It left only a smear of residual light in its place. The kinetic lance passed through empty space and kept going. A bullet with no target, carrying Val's murder into the dark. It would travel for centuries before hitting anything. Maia let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. The plague ship systems hummed around her. The interface plate glowed under her hand. She was still connected, still feeling the vessel's pulse in her own chest. She understood now what the warden had meant. She was not a visitor anymore. Thumic convergent hit Val at full speed. The two Dreamwalkers collided in a burst of static and light. Their forms warped as they fought across 2 dimensions at once. In the physical world, Thumic's folded light body wrapped around Val's obsidian suit. It pinned the quarantine keeper's arms. In the mental dimension, they clashed with thought and memory. Each tried to overwrite the other's consciousness. Val screamed in its native tongue, a grinding sound like stones breaking. "You do not understand. The quarantine must hold. It has always held. I have guarded it for 800 years. Thumic convergent drove deeper into Val's mind. It searched for the override commands buried in its neural architecture. The controls were there, locked behind 8 centuries of ritual and duty. Val had trained its own brain to reject any command contradicting the quarantine. "The lance is already fired," Thumic projected back. "The human ship jumped, you missed." Val's form flickered. Its containment suit cracked along one shoulder. Obsidian splinters floated in the zero gravity. The crack spread. "It does not matter. The humans are inside. They have touched the interface. They have awakened the vessel. The quarantine is already broken." Thumic convergent paused. Val's words carried a truth. It settled like cold water in its core. "The quarantine is broken," it repeated, "but not the way you think." It released Val. It stepped back. It let the quarantine keeper float in the command center's dim light. Val's cracked suit leaked atmosphere in thin streams. The streams froze into glittering crystals. "The humans built that ship," Thumic said. "They built the quarantine, they built the prison, and they sealed something inside they could not destroy. Do you understand what that means?" Val's lenses flickered. It meant nothing. It could not mean anything. The quarantine keeper had spent 8 centuries maintaining a seal it did not understand, for a purpose it had never questioned. The truth was a blade lodged in its chest. Thumic convergent turned away from Val. It had no time for the keeper's crisis. The human ship was gone. The plague ship remained, and the humans inside it were doing something. It made the vessel's psionic signature change in ways Thumic could not predict. It reached out with its mind. It brushed the plague ship's surface and recoiled. The ship was waking up. Maia stood in the primary system's core, her hand still pressed to the interface plate. She listened to the warden's voice in her skull. The warden spoke in images. It showed her the dimensional anchor, a knot of space and time at the vessel's heart, twisted into a shape. It should not exist. The anchor was stable now, but it would not stay stable. The enemy on the other side pressed against it constantly. It wore it down with patience spanning eons. The warden showed her how to strengthen the seal. The method was simple: a human genetic code, imprinted directly into the anchor's matrix. The ship would recognize the imprint as a living key, a perpetual authorization. It guaranteed the seal could only be reopened by another human. But the imprint had to be permanent. The warden showed her what that meant. Her body, her mind, her consciousness, all of it would merge with the ship's systems. She would become part of the quarantine. She would feel every corridor, hear every drone, sense every shift in the dimensional barrier. She would never leave. 11 seconds. That was how long she had before the anchor destabilized. 11 seconds to decide. Would she spend the rest of her life, and possibly the rest of her existence, inside a vessel built by ancestors she had never known, guarding a threat she had never seen? She looked at Ilias. He stood in the corridor. His broad shoulders filled the doorway. His silver hair caught the emergency lights. He was watching her with an expression she had seen before, the look of a man who knew exactly what she was about to do. Maia raised her hand from the interface plate. She looked at her palm. The scars were still there, the old calluses, the lines mapping a lifetime of work. She had spent 43 years fixing things, breaking things, understanding things. This was just another repair. She pressed her hand back down. The imprint took. It felt like falling, like every nerve in her body lit up at once, then spread outward through the ship's systems like water flooding dry channels. She felt the hull, every plate, every seam, every repair made over tens of thousands of years. She felt the drones, scattered and damaged, their consciousnesses dim but present. She felt the corridors, the vaults, the sealed chambers. She felt the dimensional anchor. It was a knot of impossible geometry, a place where space folded in on itself and time ran in loops. The enemy pressed against it from the other side, a presence so vast and so hungry that Maia's mind could not hold its shape. It was rage without cause, hunger without end. And it knew she was there. For the first time in 10,000 years, the thing in the prison felt a living mind on the other side of the barrier. It pressed harder. The anchor groaned. But it held. The warden's presence faded. Its task was complete. For 10,000 years it had maintained the quarantine alone, waiting for someone to come, waiting for a human to arrive and take its place. Now it could rest. Maia stood in the core and felt the ship around her. She felt Ilias still in the corridor, his hand pressed to the wall. She felt the Phalanx drifting in the dark, its crew alive and shaken. She felt Thumic convergent, a flicker of static on the edge of her awareness, watching from Seer Val's command center. She felt the anchor, stable, for another 1,000 years. But the enemy knew her now. It knew her name, it knew the shape of her thoughts. And it was patient. Ilias Corton pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the observation deck. He watched the gas giant below them turn its slow, indifferent rotation. 3 star systems away from the plague ship, 3 star systems away from Maia. He held her datapad in both hands. The screen glowed blue in the dim light. He had played the transmission 6 times already. Her voice was calm, not the forced calm of someone holding themselves together. The real thing, the stillness of a person, a decision made, no need to defend it. "I made my choice willingly," she said. Her image flickered on the small screen, shaved scalp visible, those thin scars across her knuckles catching the light as she adjusted the datapad's angle. "I do not regret it. The ship recognized me, Ilias, not as a visitor, not as a trespasser, as family. You understand what that means." He understood. He had been there when she pressed her hand to the interface plate. He had felt the ship's pulse through the deck plating. The plague ship knew her the way a house knows the hands that built it. "Do not come looking for me," she said. "Do not send anyone. The quarantine needs to hold, but it needs to hold on our terms now, our watch. Do you understand?" He had nodded at the recording as if she could see him. He nodded again now. The deck hatch hissed open behind him. He did not turn around. He recognized the soft, harmonic chime of Lumine's crystals, the way they shifted and refracted in the low gravity. The Prismkin ambassador moved to stand beside him. Its faceted body caught the starlight. It scattered it across the observation deck in 1,000 tiny rainbows. "You have listened to her message many times," Lumine observed. Its voice was a series of overlapping tones. Each one carried a different shade of meaning. "Is there comfort in repetition?" Ilias considered the question. "There is clarity in it. She says the same thing every time. No hesitation, no doubt. I keep waiting for the part where she sounds afraid. It never comes. That is the human quality, Lumini remarked. It confuses us most. You do not need to be unafraid to act without fear. It made the vessel's psionic signature resonate, a frequency no Dreamwalker had ever heard.